Hey, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the show. We've got another video for you, and we're going to be doing an actual step-by-step tutorial on how to install the Hobie H-rail upgrade kit on the Hobie Compass. Now, this kit normally comes on the Outback, but I used my creative process and I mounted them on the front. So we're going to be taking those down, and I'm actually going to be redoing some things to it that I should have done right the first time, and I knew it was going to end up failing at some point. So we're going to tear it down, rebuild it. We're also going to put in some integrated L.E.D supernova lights. We're going to put some green lights in for when we're fishing at night. So you guys stick around, check it out. Let's get into it. Alright guys, so first things first, we're going to go ahead and start uninstalling the Hobie H-rail upgrade kit. We're going to back out all the stainless steel screws. These rails do have to be a tad bit shorter on each side for the measurement to work out on the front of the compass. And I believe I took an inch off each side to keep that top track part centered. So be aware of that. Alright guys, so one of the reasons I'm redoing this job is that I've got to replace all 4 of the Hobie shock corded screw ends. And what these are the plastic pieces that screw into the actual hull of the kayak. I've got one of them that has failed on me. As you can see, I can't get that Hobie Pro angler handle off. So I'm going to back this cleat out that I'm taking off. And what I have to do is put a flathead screwdriver in between the base of that Pro angler handle and the kayak and put some pressure in between that. There's a nut and bolt in there that just doesn't want to come apart. That's the cleat that I've added on in order to put your compass bungee back on once this job is done, and we'll get into that later once we get further into the process. But as you can see there, I screwed these cleats on the end. I guess that's what you would call them, cleats, bungee cleats, just so you could put the Hobie mesh mat back on the top, because you'll have room up underneath and on top once this job is complete. So what's happening here is I'm trying to unscrew the stainless steel screw, but the nut is spinning inside the Hobie shock cord end screw. And when I originally did this job, I tried to use Gorilla Glue to glue the nuts in, and they've come loose basically. So I've had to put a little pressure in between there just to get them to back off. That's a little trick that I do. But I've made 4 new Hobie shock cord end screws by putting some plastic inside the other plastic, welding it together, and then re-threading through the middle. And I'll show you what those look like here in a minute. But right now I'm backing out the first shock cord end screw. We're going to back that out of the hull. And normally I just use needle nose pliers. Hobie does make a tool to take this out, but I find this easier. So there we go. That is what I have the H-rails mounted to. You can see the Gorilla Glue there, and on the inside I've actually got heat shrink in the middle so that screw will feed right through. Now the one in my other hand is the brand new one. It's a lot more durable, a lot stronger. It's going to work out a lot better. That way if I ever want to replace those bars, take them off anytime, I'm not going to have an issue with it. I should have just done the job right the first time, but I didn't. Learn your lesson. Okay, so now here what we got to do is we got to take the supernova LED lights and line them up with the bar. Find out what section and where we want to cut out on this H-rail. So now we're going to back out the opposite side Hobie shock cord end screw. There it is. So you can't tell, but inside there's a nut inside there. That way you could thread a screw in and out and mount that H-rail to that. The problem is that that Gorilla Glue just didn't work out that well. So now we've got our new Hobie shock cord end screw. We have drilled a small diameter hole through that in order to feed the LED wiring through. And once we get this feeded through, we're going to pull it back out, reinstall the Hobie shock cord end screw back into the hole, and then we're going to drill a tiny hole through the actual hull of the kayak so we can feed the wire completely through to the inside of the hull. Alright, now we're gonna reinstall the Hobie shock end cord. And when you're reinstalling these, you really only need to apply about 9 to 10 pounds of pressure. So really just hand tight. You don't want to over screw those. Now that we have the shock cord end screw installed and tightened, we're going to go ahead and take the drill and we're going to feed the drill bit through the hole that's already there that we made earlier, and it's going to go down through the hole. So we're going to drill through the hole in order to feed the LED wiring through to the inside of the hull. Alright, so here we're going to get inside the hatch. We've got the wire fed through the top. We're going to pull out the Fpv Power Hub distribution center, get inside the hull, and feed that wire through. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and get the handles back on the H-rail. We're going to get the H-rail lined up on the kayak. See where we need to actually make that cut to open up the H-rail in order for the light to shine out. So you want to make sure that you get this right the first time. You don't want to cut and then have a problem. So that's when that whole measure twice, cut once thing comes in. So once you figured out where you want to put that light in at, make your markings on the H-rail with the black pin. So here you can see on the left side we made one mark that's about 6 inches out from the handle, and that's about the length of the light. We're going to double check that again. Like I said, you got to double check your measurements, measure as many times as you have to. And then our other cut is going to take place right down at the end of the handle. So we're just going to outline that there. We're going to triple check our markings. Make sure the spot that we want to cut out is going to face the right direction of the angle of the light that we want to go into the water off the right side of the kayak. Alright, so there's our markings. You got about 6 inches in between there. You're going to go along the other lines and cut it out. You'll see what I'm talking about once I bring it back with it all cut out. I apologize, guys. I should have put the me cutting the rail on the shot, and I didn't. But basically, what tool I'm using, I'm just using your basic Dremel tool with the grinding wheel on it to cut out that section, and then I end up using a file to file it out to deburr it. You don't want to have any sharp edges on that railing. And what I'm doing now is I got a spray bottle. I'm just spraying it down. We want to wipe away any debris, any dust particles that are going to be on that H-rail, because we are going to be using that double-sided tape that comes along with the supernova LED lights in order to adhese it onto that H-rail. So make sure you get that wiped down nice and clean. So now you can see the section that we've cut out. I didn't do a real pretty job, but it is what it is. Nice and deburred, nothing sharp, so you can still use the actual handles to carry. Hey, we got a thumbs up. There we go. Good to go. Alright, so now we're going to run the wiring through the H-rail with the lighting and just see how it's going to fit. We want to make sure we have our angle right, the way that it's going to mount in correct. Like I said, we got to triple check everything. And that's how that light seats in there. It's nice, it's hidden, it's actually sitting at somewhat of an angle where it mounts inside. You got to remember that this H-rail is not completely hollow like the original ones. This is the H-rail upgrade kit, which has the track on the top. So if you see the inside of the boot, there's actually some open spots to where you can run the wiring through, which is pretty neat. So you can access the wire right through the opening of the handle, through the bottom of the boot. There you go. So all that we really have to do is drill a tiny hole at the bottom of that mount in order for it to run down inside the hole once everything's mounted together. And you'll see that later here in the video. Okay, so now we're going to take the handle, feed that wire through, and we're going to drill at that one tiny spot that I was telling you about, just to feed that wire through the end of that Pro Angler handle. Alright, we made it through. So now we're just going to test this wire, make sure it fits through, make sure we can run all the wire through smoothly. You're probably going to have to grab a pair of needle nose pliers to get into that small section just to pull that end of the wiring out. But we're just testing this now just to make sure it runs through. We're going to end up having to pull it out and rerun it through the hole the correct way. So we're going to pull all that out again. So I went ahead and cut that other second H-rail bar, and I'm basically just wiping it down like I did the first one. Make sure I don't have any dust or debris on it. That way the double-sided tape from the supernova light does stick on there and has a long lifespan. I want to make sure that that stays on there and doesn't fall off. So make sure you wipe those down really good. Alright, so now that we got the H-rail all cleaned up, we're going to run the LED light inside of the H-rail and just see how it sits inside. Make sure we're not going to have any problems. That's how it should look. Now we're going to check the angle of the bar for when we put the Pro Angler handles back on. Just make sure it is going to sit at the right point where we want it to. Everything seems to look good, so we're going to take the backing off of the Supernova LED light. And just be very careful when you're putting it back in the H-rail bar. You don't want it to get stuck in a spot you don't want it to be at. So we're going to run it inside the tube, as I was not doing in that clip. Now we're going to run it inside, make sure that it is going to seat properly. I'm kind of fumbling with it, it's kind of hard. There's not a whole lot of room in there when you're moving it around, so just make sure you get adjusted exactly where it needs to be before you put any pressure. Now we've got it, so we're going to apply a lot of pressure all along that. And that really helps that double-sided tape, especially with 3M, and if you push down for a couple of seconds, it'll really adhere to the metal. That's how it should look, guys. Now we're going to check the angle again. And we'll have to figure out what direction the Pro Angler handles are going to go on there. So now we have our LED wiring coming out of the H-rail. We're going to run it through the Pro Angler handle the way that you saw before. Alright, and then just feed that wire all the way through. And once you get that wire fed through, you're going to figure out what direction the Pro Angler handle is going to go on that H-rail in order for it to mount correctly with the light in the right direction. I had to drill that hole out just a little bit bigger. I was having trouble getting the wiring to feed through. That one we actually didn't have to use the pliers. It went right on through. Alright, so now we just got everything lined up. Gotta check our distance between both of the Hobie Pro Angler handles. So now you can see how everything is running. You can't see any wiring, hardly. It's all hidden. So now you're going to take the other end of that LED light wire and we're going to run it inside through the hull. So we're going to go back inside the hatch. We're going to go back in and grab that and feed all that wire back through again. Just keep pulling till you bring it all the way down. And it'll line up. Now, if you guys been wondering what I've been drinking out of that sippy cup all morning, it's called Free Range Trading Post Coffee. I drove up to the Guggen HQ the other day and I met a guy named Sean that works up there. He hooked me up with this sample box for $25. It comes with 4 samples: the Freedom Roast, the Early Morning Bite, the Speed Goat Original, and Tree Line. Man, I gotta tell you, this is some of the best tasting coffee I've had in a while. Very, very smooth. I'm probably gonna have to give up my Colombian coffee. I don't know what my wife's going to say about it, but it's probably going to happen. So if you guys hadn't checked out Free Range Coffee, you need to. And if you're not in the DFW area, you can go to GuggenSquad.com and order it there. You can also go to Carl's Bait and Tackle at shopcarls.com. Get you a box and check it out. In order to mount the Pro Angler handle back onto the H-rail correctly, we're going to have to push it back together and drill through the handle into the H-rail, and we're going to put a tiny screw, a set screw, inside of there. That way there is no adjustability for it. It's locked in place as it would originally come from the manufacturer. We're having to do this since we cut back an inch on each side of these H-rails in order for the link to work correctly on the front of the compass. Now once you get one side of the Pro Angler handle back onto the Hobie H-rail, you want to get it back up and line it up for the other boot. So once you put the other Pro Angler handle on, you want to do the exact same thing you did on the opposite side. You're going to drill right through it and you're going to put a set screw right in there. That way nothing is moving, shifting, it's all solid, one piece. Once you got that back together, now you're going to line everything up. All your holes should match up accordingly. If so, take your stainless steel screws and bolt everything together. And it only needs to be hand tight. You don't need to over torque these, just hand tight. Alright guys, just make sure everything's torqued down by hand, 7 to 10 pounds. Don't over torque it. Make sure that bar is nice and sturdy. And when you're doing the other side, you're going to do exactly the same thing. Nothing's going to change. If you guys liked the video today, please give it a thumbs up.
like, subscribe, share the video. And if there's anything else you guys would like to see content related, please leave it in the comments down below. Otherwise, you guys stick around for the rest of the video. We're gonna light this thing up. For all your lighting, electronics, and kayak accessory needs, please visit www.marinersails.com.